If you've ever felt like an outsider, a people pleaser, the one who's never quite good enough, some of these symptoms might explain why. There are 6 symptoms that show up again and again in women healing from other wounds. And working with clients for the past almost decade, I've noticed these 6 symptoms come up over time, multiple times. So let's start with how I define the mother wound. It's a relational and an attachment trauma. It happens when there is a rift or conflict between a mom and a daughter. When a mother wound is present, there is a disruption in how the daughter was able to attach to her mother, how she was able to emotionally attach to her, and how she felt that she was able to get emotional support from her mom. So in essence, a woman who has a mother wound probably had a mom who was highly critical of her, who was inconsistent in her presence, who was inconsistent in her emotional support, and who was inconsistent in how she showed up and cared for and supported her daughter. The first symptom that I've noticed in clients that I've worked with is people pleasing and perfectionism. A woman that struggles with this probably had to perform for her parents' love or for their attention. You got a lot of praise. Your parents noticed and they showed up when you did something great and something that they were proud of. But when you weren't doing those things, they probably were very inconsistent in how they showed up or how they showed love and how they spoke about you. So you learned to perform for their attention and their love. You would keep striving for more and keep trying harder and keep making accomplishments because you learned that the love from your parents was consistent on your performance and how well that you did. In your adult life, you keep performing. You want to be the perfect friend. You want to show up for everybody. You want to make sure that everybody likes you and no one's upset with you. You want to make sure that no one's going to stop being your friend or whatever. You don't want to lose people, and you want to make sure that you continue to have that friendship or have those relationships so you perform inside of them. You may struggle with saying no in fear of disappointing people. You may struggle to actually set up boundaries and protect yourself or do things that you know are good for you because you learn that performing for other people is how you get love and how you get attention and how you maintain relationships. No one wants to perform all the time. This is exhausting and it leads to so much burnout inside of relationships. But this is a sign that I see in women again and again. And we dig down to figure out what is happening, why they feel like this inside of their relationships. We can usually assign it to what they had to do in their childhood and how they had to perform for their own mother. The second sign that I notice is struggling to trust other women. You often have a difficult time trusting other women and getting close to them and building healthy friendships. You either keep women at a distance and you have very superficial friendships and no one really knows who you are. It's because you're keeping yourself protected. Or you feel like an outsider because you never really let yourself fully be a part of the group because you just don't trust women. You don't know what their motivation is. You don't know if they have an ulterior motive, and you struggle to build close relationships and to build healthy relationships with women because you were taught not to trust them. Women who struggle with this probably had a few things happening. So we first learn about friendships from our mom and the kind of relationships that she has around her. And we also learn about friendships in childhood and going to school and actually learning how to make friends and how to share and introduce ourselves to other kids and those things. So we learn it from 2 different places. But from your mom, either she had no friends and you never really got to see her inside of friendships and what adult women friendships look like. Or maybe your mom had lots of friends or she had very few close friends and you saw them together and maybe they had a good time. But when they left, you might have seen your mom talk negatively about them, have maybe nasty things to say, or might have been very critical of her friends. And so it's like you were just in their face having a great time, but now you're talking about them. That creates distrust, and you really are unsure as a child what these friendships are supposed to look like. And on the other side of that, there are moms who teach their daughters that other girls are jealous of them, that you can't trust other girls. Don't get close to them because those girls are just jealous. They're going to hurt you. They're not really going to be your friend. They're going to talk about you behind your back, that you just can't trust girls, so don't really be their friends. And oftentimes, I notice this in women who say, I just get along with guys better. Guys are just easier to get along with. I have more male friends because guys are just easier. I see on the flip side of that is that they just don't trust women. And when we dig down into that and figure out what actually does that mean and what is happening, we see that the way that they view friendships with women has been disrupted. There's no trust there. They fear being hurt by them. They struggle with conflict. So they see everything as drama and they just choose not to engage. And so they tell themselves that they just get along better with men. The next symptom that I notice is internalized blaming. This sounds like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? Oh, I can't believe that I said that. And then harping on a situation for weeks on end. This also looks like taking responsibility for other people's emotions and taking responsibility for an entire conflict that happens inside of a relationship that you have. You tell yourself that there's only conflict inside of this because you did something wrong, because you said something wrong, because you are wrong, versus actually looking at the picture as a whole and seeing, okay, what are the moving parts of this? What has caused this conflict? And actually seeing the entirety of it. You just in turn blame yourself for everything. And this is not the same as doing some kind of self-reflection, saying, okay, this has occurred. What could I have done differently? What could I have said differently? How could I have shown up differently? This is more I'm wrong. I'm bad. I can't believe I did that. If I hadn't done that, this wouldn't have happened. And this conflict only exists because of me, because I'm bad. You take on the responsibility for everything and everybody, and you don't see yourself as just one part of a conflict. If there's a conflict between two people, there's usually two people that played a part in this, but you just find yourself to be the one that is in the wrong. And again, this is something else that becomes very, very exhausting. You can only take the blame for things for so long before your self-esteem and your confidence just starts to plummet. The next symptom that I notice is abandonment fears. Feeling very anxious inside of your relationships, wondering if people are going to leave you, wondering if this relationship is going to end. And when I'm saying relationship, I'm talking platonic, romantic, I don't know, maybe even work relationships. When I say relationship, I just mean something that happens between two people. So this can also be friendships. When you fear abandonment, there are two sides. You can either do one of two things. What I notice is that some women test other people. They push them away. They keep them at arm's length. They never really let them in because they already assume that everyone's going to abandon them. And so they don't let people get close enough to abandon them and to hurt them. And everything kind of just remains superficial. Or even if you start to get a little bit close, you test them in some way to see what they're going to do. If I do this, will they leave? And so if they do leave, you're like, see, I knew it. I knew they were going to leave. So you kind of just prove to yourself that they would, even though that's more self-sabotaging than actually seeing if somebody would have abandoned you. And on the other side of abandonment, when you fear being abandoned, some people become very clingy and very codependent on somebody else because they're so afraid of them leaving that they want to keep them as close as possible. And they want to make sure that they can't go anywhere. And so it becomes very clingy and very codependent and sometimes very needy. And that's also a thing that pushes people away and causes more abandonment. And so you go to like these two kind of extreme, what's the word I'm looking for? So you go to these two like very extreme but opposite behaviors because you're afraid of abandonment, but these two behaviors are actually probably creating more abandonment and you're self-sabotaging, but then proving to yourself that everybody's just going to abandon you. But you struggle to see how your behaviors are actually playing a very big role in that. Abandonment can stem from childhood. If you had a mom who actually abandoned you, maybe she left you with a grandparent or she left you with an aunt and somebody else raised you, that's abandonment. Or she would kind of be in and out of your life. So maybe she was around, but she'd leave for a few days and you'd be with your grandma or with somebody else. And then she'd come back and then things are great, but then she'd leave again. Like her life was not about parenting. It was not about being a mom. Her life was really about her. And you were just a little piece of that. So that's actual abandonment. And that can create a lot of trauma and that can hurt a lot. The other side of that, maybe you didn't have a mom that actually like physically abandoned you and left, but you may have had a mom that used silent treatment when she was upset with you. And you had to kind of beg or plead or do whatever you could to get her to talk to you again. And so you learned that your mom would abandon you and how she was actually interacting with you. And silent treatment is very manipulative and can cause a lot of harm to children. And it's also very scary because depending on how long this silent treatment lasted, like, how did you know when your mom was going to talk to you again? Or you had to learn to do something to make her talk to you again or make her happy again in some way. And so instead of being taken care of by your mom, you're now taking care of her to prevent abandonment. Abandonment can also come up when you're 17 or 18 and you're counting down the days to be able to leave your mom's house. Okay. No 17-year-old or 18-year-old leaves their parents' house like fleeing because the home was happy. They do it because something inside the home was broken, or it was painful, or it was very traumatic. So when you have to leave and you have to figure out very quickly how to take care of yourself and how to survive, that's another layer of abandonment. And that creates another fear too. And so if this is what your childhood looked or sounded like, you're probably carrying those fears into adult relationships. And you might be playing out what you had to do as a child, or maybe you're doing the exact opposite, but it's still not getting you the results that you want. I want to give a trigger warning for this next symptom. If you struggle with eating disorders and body image issues, and listening to this might trigger you, I would skip to the next one. The next symptom that I've seen in clients is eating disorders, body image issues, and struggling with their relationship with food. What I've noticed and what I've seen is that some women have their self-worth tied to their body image and what they look like. They struggle with how they view themselves, and they have their mother's comments about their image, their appearance, their weight, and their food consumption stuck in their head. Eating disorders and body image issues usually stem from having a mom that made your body image, your appearance, and your food intake a huge deal. She made your appearance and your weight a huge pillar of importance, and it was probably something she talked about constantly and harped on. You probably needed to dress a certain way, look a certain way, wear your hair a certain way, and be a specific size for her to be proud of you and want to show you off. And if you weren't, she probably talked negatively about you or had things to say about your appearance and how others saw you. You were probably taught how to diet at a certain age, how to watch your food intake, and how to only eat certain foods. Your mom may even have gone as far as calling you fat and calling you names when she did not like your appearance or she didn't like your weight. And that would have been a huge hit to your self-esteem and your confidence, and also how you viewed yourself and your body image. All of these things together create an issue with food that carries on into adulthood. And the last symptom that I notice in clients is struggling to create and enforce boundaries. I want to pause here for a bit and acknowledge that eating disorders are a really big topic and can bring up a lot of emotion. It is one of the hardest mental health issues that any woman can go through, and one of the hardest ones to get through and be and feel more in control of. If you are struggling with this, I do encourage you to seek help if you haven't already, and don't battle this issue alone. This one is really difficult to do alone, and having the proper support can make all of the difference. So I do encourage you to seek support from a licensed therapist if this is something that you have struggled with. Another side to struggling with setting boundaries is having a mom that was completely enmeshed with you. So she's not the mom that abandoned you. She's not the mom that left or was in and out or inconsistent, but she was the mom that hovered. She saw your life as hers. She basically wanted to be like the center of your world. And that really leaves you with not having a life of your own. It's like your life and her life are intertwined. And if you struggled with enmeshment, you probably struggled to feel like you had your own identity or feel like you could really make your own decisions. Your mom was probably making a lot of decisions for you. And that also creates struggles with creating and enforcing boundaries, especially with her. Women who struggle with creating and enforcing boundaries often struggle with saying no, putting themselves first, having needs and voicing them and actually getting them met. And sometimes it's can be hard to tell where they end and the next person begins when we have codependency or enmeshment going on. In childhood, you probably weren't allowed to say no. You weren't allowed to have an opinion. You really weren't allowed to voice it. And whatever your mom or your parents said went. You didn't really get much of a say. Sometimes there wasn't even room to voice emotions or to say you were hurt or to even cry. You were told to suck it up, deal with it, move on, kind of get over these things. You weren't really taught how to have boundaries, how to have a voice, and how to get your own needs met. Okay, let's recap for a second there. The 6 things that I noticed that show up in women who have a mother wound that has shown up again and again in my practice is people pleasing and perfectionism, issues trusting other women, internalizing blame, fears of abandonment, eating disorders and body image issues, and struggling to create and enforce boundaries. Now, please know that this is not an exhaustive list and it's not a complete list. We are talking about humans and human behavior. And so it's hard to say if you have a mother wound, you are going to exhibit these kind of behaviors, or you're going to have these kind of symptoms. It's hard to say that because everyone experiences things in a different way. Just like with trauma, it's hard to say this experience is going to be traumatic. We can't really say that. So, for example, a car accident. It's hard to say car accidents are traumatic. Like, yes, we can say that, but some people walk away from a car accident completely traumatized, and some people get in a car accident and get in a new car the next day and continue driving as if nothing ever happened. So some people are left with this deep fear, and some people weren't affected at all. And so it's hard to say that specific events are traumatic, just like it's hard to say just because you have a mother wound, you're going to exhibit these behaviors. I hope that makes sense. There are things that usually create a trauma, or there are symptoms that we usually see, like the six that I just described, but it doesn't mean that there aren't others, or that if you don't have these six symptoms, or at least one of them, that maybe you don't have a mother wound. That wouldn't be true. These are just some of the common ones that I personally have seen in my practice with women who have a mother wound. And if you talk to somebody else who does this work, they may see different ones. It really just depends. And you may have something so different from somebody else. Like your symptoms might look different, and how you experienced your mom and the wound that it left for you may show up completely different. So know that this is not an exhaustive list. This is just the start of a list. It gives you some ideas of what could be showing up and what could be underneath them. And just to help you get started on what healing could look like. If you know what you're healing, it makes that process so much easier. Thank you for making it to the end of this video, day 3. And yeah, sticking this out with me. Again, I'm Brittney, a licensed therapist and a mother-daughter relationship coach. And I'm here to teach you about the mother-daughter relationship, the signs and symptoms of mother wounds, and how to reconnect a relationship if it's been broken. And also, if you're raising a daughter, stay with me. Watch some of these videos, and there's also going to be some that are specifically for you in order to not pass down a mother wound. Like, know how to connect with her and know how to keep her in and make her feel loved and safe, so that way mother wounds stop right here with you. You can do that. Yeah, I will catch you guys in my next video.